perfectly, but today I'm just hoping that we have a chance to get together and connect and talk about some things that hopefully will be meaningful to you. So if you're like me, suddenly roles really changed very quickly, and we started having to manage our jobs, manage kids. I'm a short order cook now. All kinds of things happen at once. And what that does is it creates a lot of big waves. And what's really cool about your brain is that it's really primed for stress. What happens when we become stressed is our brain releases a lot of stress hormones throughout our body to keep us really alert and capable. And for the first couple of weeks, if you were like me, you were probably riding the waves of this intense push of adrenaline and cortisol, and it felt like it could be okay. But by now, we're not riding the wave anymore. Many of us are feeling overwhelmed or fatigued. All of that stuff is absolutely normal, and it's hitting that we don't really know when this is going to end. And so that unpredictability also keeps us really on edge. So my hunch is that you came today to really hear about some things to do to support your kids. But I know that in any sort of stressful situation, whether it be a family crisis or a global pandemic, kids tend to do as well as their parents are doing. So today we're also going to spend some time really talking about what you're doing for your own emotional health and how you're regulating your nervous system. So I have to clarify that I am not, again, I'm not a techie kind of person. I am going to try to share some slides with you. So we'll see if that works. Here we go. Okay. So first, let's talk about some things that you probably the reason you actually came today was likely driven by this idea that you want to do some things to help your kids during this time. And so there are some things that just tend to help ground people in uncertain times, regardless of if it's a kid or an adult. And those things are things like creating routine and structure. So humans desire predictability. We need routine to help our nervous system calm. When we know what's coming, we tend to be okay with it. Kids are no different. So it's best to try to keep things as routine as possible. And what that means is, you keep a typical bedtime. You get up around the same time. You actually might get dressed and brush your teeth. If you're going to create a more visual structure or routine for your kiddos, it's really important to have them buy in. So I always encourage people to have their kids create it with them. Kids are really smart about what they need, and they tend to have really creative ideas about let's plug in some Lego time or let's walk the dog time. So inviting them to be a part of that creation of the routine and structure really gives you some buy-in. The thing about creating routines is that they can't be too rigid. So Daniel Siegel talks about this river of well-being. And it's this idea that when things are going well, when neurologically things are going well, we're kind of floating in the middle of the river. But when the waves start coming, what most people do is they tend to start going towards the riverbanks of rigidity or chaos. And when we set up structures and routines that are deeply rooted in rigidity, it just creates problems around power struggles and we didn't follow the structure today. Like when you think about what is the goal around a routine and a structure, it really is to create some sort of loosely based idea of what's coming next. It's not down to the minute. So there is this idea that Rigidity is really created out of this need for consistent predictability. And that's where anxiety comes in. It really doesn't like things that are unpredictable. And so when we're floundering, we want things to be really predictable. When we stay really rooted and rigid, it just creates more problems for kids. So think about a flexible schedule. Maybe some of the things you think about instead of like, math at 10:30, English, we're reading at 11:05. Like instead of those things, think about things like this. What are we doing for the health of our body today? What are we moving? When should we do that? What are we doing for the health of our brain today? What are we doing? What time should we do that? What are we doing for the health of our relationships? Those are the things that I think really help keep things loose and not so tightly rigid. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, maybe I can't. Hold on one sec. There we go. Okay. Think about getting creative about activities. So we're all stuck at home. So I'm stuck at home with 3 teenagers. So I'm in a whole different boat than you guys are. Maybe you have teenagers and you got little bitties. I don't know. But I know that with little bitties, teenagers, we can't get them to hang out with us. Little bitties, you can't get them to peel off of you. So I can only imagine at home, you're like, I'm plumb out of ideas. We've played every game. We've made every puzzle. We've done everything under the sun. Well, I want you to think about really channeling the 1980s childhood, okay? Before screens, what did we do? We built forts. We made towns out of paper. We created our own pretend restaurant where we served people. Like really get creative about what this time could really look like. Right now, kids have incredible amounts of entertainment. I mean, certainly, oodles more than I had when I was growing up. But think about this is a time to kind of take a little detour from the things that you've been doing and try some things that you haven't tried before. We used to make these elaborate card houses. Remember when you used to balance cards and you'd make these really cool structures out of playing cards? Like those are the things that you can bust out now. I mean, I have a junior in high school, a freshman in high school, and an 8th grader. And my 9th grader the other day busted out his basketball collection and found that he has a $1,000 card. We were all like, wow! Like he never even would have looked at those cards if he wasn't so bored out of his gourd. Like think about doing things that you might not have thought of before. Science experiments, arts and crafts, all that kind of stuff. The other thing is make moving a priority. So honestly, if there's one thing I hope you take 2 things. The one at the end about taking care of yourself, but really this moving part should be a priority because moving helps you process out feelings. It helps settle your nervous system and it helps you physically. All of those things will help your emotional well-being during this time. So even if it's running around the house or doing, 100 jumping jacks, movement is really vitally important. It helps so many things in this scenario. Okay, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but we really need to embrace technology. Like right now, that's what we've got. We've got it for schooling. We've got it for social connection. And really, we have to get on board with this. For me, like I'm so not techie that I just want to throw up my hands and be like, nah, I can't do it. But I know it's vitally important for me to stay vigilant with this to help my kids with their learning. So we don't know how long it's going to be like this. We don't know how long we're going to be taking information from a screen and how long that's going to be the way that we really connect with each other. And so we have to find a way to get on board with this. I also, on the flip side of that, I think it's vitally important to manage screen time. So what I mean by that is just be consciously aware of how much time you're spending on screens and your kids are spending on screens. So when you think about this, obviously they need them now for school. They're going to be on for their Google Meets and for getting their assignments and for watching videos from their teachers and all of that stuff. Talking to grandma on Zoom or FaceTime, playing the Xbox with their friends. Like there's so many reasons that they're on technology now. You just need to really be aware because our brain really requires screen breaks. So those folks that have developed all those really cool games on screens are really smart. I mean, they're fun and they're distracting and they suck us in, and it can be really difficult for kids to pull themselves out. But what research will show is that kids that spend too much time on screens tend to be more agitated, more edgy, more stressed. So you need to find ways that you take a screen break, all of you. The other thing to think about is, although it's really important to stay current with what's happening, for little kids, they don't have the ability to really fill in the holes of the information that they're hearing on the screen. So like if you have the news on all the time, they don't have the understanding that that we're making progress or that this is going on. They only hear it for what it is. So I always think it's as important to be conscious of what your kids are hearing, even if you don't think they're paying attention. Having CNN on in the background is definitely, they are paying attention to some things. So just be aware of what is happening with the news. Okay, so stay realistic, but reassuring about what is happening. Am I glitching? Did you guys just hear me? Am I glitching? No? Yes? No? Okay. But it says my internet is insecure, so I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to keep going as if you can hear me. So if you can't, give me one of these. Like, can't hear you. Like you got to, or unmute yourself and say, hey lady, we can't hear you. Whatever you need to do to let me know. Okay. So staying realistic and reassuring looks like this. So often adults think that kids don't pay attention to what's happening around them, but they are absolutely aware that something's happening. I mean, we've stopped going to school. They've heard about what's going on. So when I think about talking to kids about anything that's going on around them that might create big waves, it's important to be straightforward, but don't overshare. So provide opportunities for questions, ask them how they're doing, what they know about this, but also really root in the things that we can control. So the things that we can control are the things like taking care of ourselves and our health. So what that means is we're really helping the world by washing our hands all the time. We're almost like health superheroes. The reason we're staying away from grandma is that we're helping her health. So it's a story rooted in health versus a story rooted in fear. So right now, the fear really comes from adults. Kids don't really know how to tap into that unless they've heard the adults around them. So it's important to just really stick with the facts of what we can control and the fact that we're all really working hard as a community to work together to be as healthy as possible for everyone. So it's a story of health versus fear. Okay, here's the big meat and potatoes of the whole entire deal. Okay, so I'm going to try not to get preachy about this, but I think this is really, really, really important. This is the most important part. So we know that when adults can figure out how to regulate themselves in the midst of crisis, they can sprinkle that regulation out to their kids. Now listen, I'm not saying this is easy. I don't know about you guys, but I have ups and downs. My feelings are all over the place. On any given day, I could be completely overwhelmed, and that's natural. Things are unsettled right now, so it keeps our emotions on a journey. But I want you to consider this. So think about a time you were on a plane. Okay. So let's just say you're on a plane, you're sitting there minding your own business, reading a book or watching a movie on your iPad, and suddenly you hit a huge pat of turbulence. I mean, a big one. Like you're like, whoa, right? And you're like, holy cow. And your nervous system is activated, right? And you're like, oh, geez Louise, right? And you look to the person sitting next to you and they're gripping the seat and you're like, holy cow, like this could be it, right? Like your nervous system is activated. But then suddenly the pilot comes on and she says in a really calm, soothing voice, it goes ding, ding. And she comes on and she says, okay, everyone, I'm sure you've noticed we've hit a patch of turbulence. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to buckle your seat belts and sit tight. I'm going to ask the flight attendants to take a seat, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as I know more information. And they go off. And you're like, oh, okay. Now, this is the deal. That pilot may be worried about this turbulence. In fact, they may be thinking, holy Toledo, like looking at the weather, we might be hitting a load of turbulence. But if that pilot gets on the overhead and says, we're going to hit a patch of huge turbulence, everybody's going bananas, right? The pilot's job is to assure us to stay calm. That doesn't mean that the pilot isn't worried. It means that their job is to focus on how to get through the turbulence. And we know that in big times of unsettling things, everyone needs to know that somebody's in control. Somebody's in charge. And right now we need to be the pilot for our kids. So what that means is we have to figure out how to find our own center, how to anchor ourselves, and how to manage our own dysregulation. So I want us to spend some time thinking about how we do that. So what's super interesting about family systems work is that often there's these really pretty cool comparisons around birth order, okay? And one of the things around birth order that comes up sometimes is that when stress and anxiety hit, some people become over functioners, okay? They go full court press. This is my oldest sister, Lisa. Like when things get crazy, she's like, all right, let's go. Like, what are we doing, right? Those are the people that are like re-roofing the house right now. They've got like lists and boxes and they've organized every closet and they're like, let's go, right? Like they overfunction. And when we overfunction, we keep ourselves so distracted that we don't have to feel, right? Then those folks tend to be oldest, not always, but oldest in their first families, tend to really get down with the overfunctioning, right? Youngest, sometimes, not all the times, become underfunctioners, right? I'm the baby in my family, so I can say this lovingly. But when the stress wave happens, the leaning might be to completely be overwhelmed and be like, I don't know what to do. Somebody else make all the decisions. I'm going to sit here in my pajamas till somebody tells me to get up and do something, right? We tend to get overwhelmed. So the thing about both those things is it's okay. Those things tend to be rooted deep in us in our earliest primitive times, but it's really smart to be aware of what do you do when the stress wave hits? What's your leaning, right? When we're aware of our leaning, then we can be grace giving to ourselves about it. And we can figure, maybe I don't want to be in my pajamas today. Maybe I need to get dressed and put on some jeans. Can you imagine? Real jeans, not just lounge pants. Like maybe the jeans will propel me to do some work or something. I don't know. But it's a choice then, right? And the thing is about those tend to be those go-to leanings is those coping skills can help us in a short sprint, but not in a long marathon. And we're in a long marathon right now. We do not know how long we're going to be sitting at home. We don't. And that's okay. We don't have to know. But with that not knowing comes a real need for developing some coping strategies around what to do with those big feelings when they come up. So this is what we're going to talk about. Okay. Number one, how do we center ourselves? The first thing is to acknowledge a feeling, right? So all feelings are okay. The feelings are never wrong. They just show up. They're like visitors. They come and they go. They come up sometimes for past reasons, but they come and they go, right? So the thing about acknowledging a feeling isn't that you have to have like a 60-minute therapy session about the one feeling. It's just that you acknowledge it. So when you think about feelings being like visitors, if they come a knocking on your door and you look out the window and you're like, oh, dang it, it's overwhelm. I'm not answering the door. Or maybe it's sadness and you're like, no way, Jose, I'm not answering the door. Buzz off or whatever. And we don't answer the door. What will happen is though it will keep knocking, or it will find a way into your basement, right? And it'll be hanging out down there. And when you least expect it, it'll bust through your door and be like, I'm here, when you're yelling at your kids for a reason you don't even know why. Or you're crying in the laundry room because somebody stained your new bedspread. Sorry, that was me yesterday. I mean, it's little things. If we don't manage our feelings, and when I say manage, it's just like noticing it's there, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, I woke up and I felt fine. And sometime in the morning, I talked to my parents who live half of the year in Florida and half of the year in Illinois. And they're pretty old. Okay, I'll just say it like that. They're pretty old. And I'm talking to them, and as I start talking to them, I get off the phone with them and I start thinking, when is going to be the next time I see my parents? Like, I really start thinking about this, like, when am I going to be able to see them again? And then I tucked it away, right? The whole day I was edgy and agitated. Like, truly, I was on edge. I didn't, I wasn't doing well. I didn't know why. I was just annoyed with everything. And it didn't hit me until last night. I was laying in bed with my daughter and I started telling her about my conversation with my mom and dad. And she's like, Mom, you sound worried. And I said, I am worried. And then I kind of started crying a little bit. And I said, I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to see Bob and Margaret. Like, I really miss them, and they're old, and I don't want to be the one that brings a virus to them. I mean, it really, but after I got done talking to my daughter about it, like, that feeling kind of lifted from me. I felt better. I found a way to process it out, right? And processing it out doesn't mean you have to cry about it in bed with your kids at night. It can be going for a run and thinking about what's really going on inside of you. It doesn't take a lot of time to do that. But when we acknowledge a feeling, we allow it to move through us. When we keep running from it, it keeps chasing us. Or it pops out when we least expect it in these really crazy ways, like rage over something ridiculous, or overwhelm about something that's not that overwhelming, right? So being really gentle and patient with yourself and allowing the feelings to come and being okay with it. Oh, wait, somebody's chatting with me. Glitchy at times. Okay, sorry. Good. Thank you. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Wait 1 second. I got to get out of here. I don't know how to do that. Boom. Okay. I'll get to your questions. I promise I will. Okay. Second thing to realize is this. Once you acknowledge the feeling and you've kind of let it move through you, be really aware of the story you're telling yourself about this particular time. Self-talk is really, really important. In fact, it often dictates the way that we experience something. So if every day I wake up during this isolation, I say to myself, this is horrible. I'm a terrible homeschool teacher. I don't know what I'm doing. I've created all these habits that are bad. Like, I'm really down on myself. That's the story that you will continue to endorse and find evidence for. This is hard. There's no way around it. This is hard. It's challenging. This is like things that we couldn't have, ever developed coping strategies around. We didn't know it was coming, right? But we do hard things. We've done hard things, all of us. I don't need to know anybody's story to know that you've done hard things. This is a hard thing. What we story about the hard thing is really important because we tend to pass the story on to our kids. So if right now we're like, this is horrible, this is terrible, I'm so worried, I can't do anything about it, we sprinkle that out on all the people around us. Think about that one person in your life that tends to really be negative. This is not the time to hang out with them, okay? I'm not telling you to cut them off of everything, but really hang out with some folks that are doing okay. The truth of it is, on any given day, if you asked me how I was doing, I'd have a different story about it. But I try to equally look for the things that are actually going okay as the things that are really difficult. The difficult stuff my brain will lean to naturally. The stuff that are actually going okay, that's stuff I have to look a little harder for, but it's worth it in the end. Okay, what is your refuge? What are you doing right now? What are your coping skills? Like, what are you doing to manage? Are you binge watching Schitt's Creek? Are you running 5 miles a day? It's important to have an understanding about what your coping skills are so you know if there's gaps in them, if you need to be doing anything differently. So when you think about what your refuge is, a refuge is really just helping you get through. This is not the time to be a perfect parent. This is not the time to think, I've got to get on this health kick and I'm dropping 20 pounds or whatever. We're just kicking our way through the big waves right now. That's what we're doing. We need to be gentle with ourselves. So when you think about what you're doing, one of the things my family's doing is that we've been going for drives. We each get our favorite drink, like our beverage. Mine right now is Bai raspberry tea, delicious. And we put on some good music, and we've been going to Portland and going through really cool neighborhoods and looking at the houses and the gardens. And it's something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Like for me, having teenagers, what this time at home has done for me is it's given me time with them. I get to hang out with them all the time. And I've learned so many things about their life that I didn't know before because they were so busy. Everybody was always going everywhere all the time. And so for me, I think about the fact that I've gotten to show my kids how to check the oil in the car. We've made the Pioneer Woman's recipe on freezer strawberry jam. I've made them do exercise videos with me, which are hilarious. Don't ever do beach body videos with teenagers. They're really snarky and they say lots of rude things all the time. But I wouldn't have been able to do that stuff with my kids if we didn't have this time. And I'm sure there's those moments that you all have with your kids during this time. So we can't overlook that time. And this is the thing about our own emotional wellness and growing our muscles. Our kids' brains are so plastic and changing that during hard times, when we learn how to do hard things, they learn how to do hard things too. So to think that right now we need to save them from all the hard feelings, nope, that's not real life. We keep swimming through hard feelings. That's what we do. And we learn how to keep going. We learn about our own resilience. We learn about how we ask for help. We learn about how we lean into each other. And we also learn about our own personal agency. So this might be the time that they're learning a lot of those soft skills around how to be a good self-talker, how to have a growth mindset, how to look for the, what are we grateful for? I know that stuff sounds so hokey in the middle of a pandemic, but it is an opportunity to really build the things that we want to build in our kids. So now I really want to open it up. I want us to learn from each other. So if there's things that you've been doing that have really been working for you and your kids, I'd love for you to share them, knowing that this is going to be recorded. The other thing is I really want to answer these questions. Hopefully the people that have emailed me these are okay with me reading them out loud. Is everybody okay with that? Give me a thumb up. Yes? Yes. Okay. So here is the question. I get what you're saying with self-care, but when do you do it? The kids are always home for the love of Pete. They didn't say that. I'm adding that. I can't wake up early enough. I'm not a morning person. At night, I'm so exhausted from managing the kids all day. I don't have the energy to manage sorting through my emotions, so I ignore. Okay, listen, 100% understand. And when I say managing your emotions, it can be as simple as being really gentle with yourself. So you see irritation walk in, right? And you're really annoyed that your kid is doing something. You just say to yourself, I'm annoyed right now. That's it. That's the only acknowledging of the feeling. It sounds totally ridiculous. Like, how's that going to help, lady? Like, that's not helping anything. I guarantee you, when we look at our emotions dead in the face, they feel validated. They're not in the corner saying, hello, I'm here. They're actually feeling validated when you stop and you're able to be like, okay, I'm feeling irritated right now. Okay. I'm not asking you to change it. You're just acknowledging the feeling. Okay. So you are in the part of the parenting race. If you have little bitties that they are like hanging on you. And I can only imagine that you don't get a break. And I'm so sorry. I'd come to your house right now and give you a break if I could, because I love little bitties. But I'll trade you a teenager for a little bitty for an hour. And we'll no, I'm kidding. We can't do that, but that would be fantastic. But the truth is, it's okay to have quiet time and to not be entertaining your kids. We live in a parenting culture right now that makes it seem like we are the entertainment. If we are not entertaining them, then we're not doing our jobs. And I would really challenge that. When I was growing up, if I would ask my mom to entertain me, she would have been like, Jen, you know how you're going to entertain yourself? I'm going to hand you a toilet brush and you're going to go brush, you're going to go clean toilets. Like, there wouldn't have been anybody playing Uno with me. Like, it's okay to give your kids quiet time, an hour a day. It's our recharging time. It's our quiet time. Mom needs it. You need it. That means no talking. These are the rules, and you set up some rules that you agree upon. It's okay to do that. Now, I know toddlers, that's a whole different deal. I'm just hoping for, I'm just hoping they still sleep for you and you have naps that they can at least go to bed and you get a second to yourself. But I get it. It's not easy. Please don't hear me saying it's easy, but it's worth it to yourself to give yourself a minute to just recognize the feelings that are coming around you. When you don't do that, they start stockpiling on you. And then you're just like, I can't even feel anymore. And that's when we have a crash, because feelings demand to be heard. That's when, we freak out about something really little because we haven't given ourselves a minute. It's okay to say to your kids, in fact, it's a beautiful gift to say, hey, oh, I'm having a big wave of emotion right now. Just give me a minute. I've got to calm down my brain. I'm just going to give myself a second. In fact, often they'll help you with that. When you give permission for that, sometimes that works. Please don't hear me saying that I think that that this is easy. Let's see. Is there anybody else that has texted me? I think this is it. So does anybody have anything out there they want to share about what's working? Or does anybody have a question? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you do. I'm looking. Anybody? Yeah, go for it.
I was going to
Okay.
say, what's working for me is actually leaning on my older kids because I have a first grader, fifth and seventh, and the fifth and seventh grader have been huge help with the little one, getting her on for technology and everything else. And my husband ends up being away on training for 10 weeks in the midst of this. So I'm leaning on my kids to help my older ones to help with my little.
And what a gift for them to feel capable and responsible and to give back to your little one. I mean, that's a win-win situation to me. I heard the other day, somebody was telling me that they have their kids do community service in their family, or they have to help each other out. So they say, what's your community service today? And they'll be like, I'm going in and I'm helping, so-and-so organize their Legos, right? Like, I love that idea. Community service doesn't just have to be in the big world. It can be in our families. And what a gift. And how cool is it that you now have evidence to say to your big kids, wow, like you really showed up and I saw you. I saw who you were. Like, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
You're welcome. My oldest was starting to email my youngest teacher. She's like, I said, I emailed the teacher for you. I was like, you start to feel kind of bad. You're like, oh my God, my 13-year-old has taken over. But I'm like, thank God she took over.
That is awesome. That is fantastic. Honestly, that is hysterical and hilarious. Okay, anybody else? Nobody?
I was going to ask you, so can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so my daughter is having such a hard time with the school stuff. Like, for some reason, she finds it, the online school thing. So she's a first grader.
Okay.
So how do I've tried doing the breathing things with her, and I've tried doing the thing of, it's okay, I know this is overwhelming, acknowledging the feeling, but it's really hard to get her out of the moment where she's just totally overwhelmed and losing it about the school stuff. And I guess because it's new and different, I'm not even really sure what's going on, because when she starts doing it, it's okay, but it's the buildup somehow. So if you've got any advice about that, I'd love it.
Do you think that she would buy into this idea that school really is just, what are we doing for our brain today? Right? It's just some idea. It's just like, what do we do for our health? We drink water. We try to eat our vegetables and our fruit. Like, what are we doing for our brain? This is just a way that we're trying to feed our brain. And I would ask her if there was something that you could do to make it easier. Like, is it easier for her if you print it off and you sit closer and you're working and she's working? And I would ask her about what she needs. Like, the thing about little guys is we often don't give them the credit that they often have their own solutions. We try to problem solve so quickly that that we dive in before we need to. And the other thing is, it's okay for her to be uncomfortable about this. It gives you evidence when she does it to support this story of her doing hard things. Do you remember when online school was hard and it just felt really overwhelming, but you did it? Like, I was so impressed with you. I was so impressed how you did it, even though it was hard, right? So it's okay to not rescue her from the discomfort. I would try restoring school for her and seeing if that helps. Your teachers really just want your brain to keep being fed, They're just trying to help your brain keep growing. And if there's other things we can be doing to do that, tell me what that would look like and let's do it. I would ask her.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Thanks.
Oh, I see her hand raised. Yes. Go for it. Yes. Yep. You. Yes.
So I have two kids who are in 5th grade and a freshman.
Oh, yeah.
So the freshman is very busy with all her stuff, and she's like basically locked in her room doing her stuff.
Okay.
And then she'll come out for lunch and dinner. That's it, because she's so busy with school.
Yep.
The other two are like, I don't think they're stimulated enough from school. They're done.
Yep.
By 12.
Yep.
And we have the no video game policy. during the week.
Yep.
And I send them outside. Mandatory PE time. We go out. I make them go outside, ride their bike, especially now. It's so nice.
Yes.
But then they're like, then I have to entertain them when they come in.
Yep.
And we have done lots of family game time. So the things that I've taught them to do is to play mahjong, which is, you know, you see that on Joy Luck Club, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a very cultural thing for them to learn. We've also increased the chores to do around the house. Mm-hmm. But then they want to have the media because all their friends have media.
Yes.
And it's very hard to be like, you can't have it.
Yes.
And
yes.
I don't know.
I think that I hear you.
They do get FaceTime. They do get FaceTime.
Yep.
They want to talk to somebody.
Yep.
They can text people if they want to have a conversation.
Yep.
But it's like they're done. They're done with stuff. And I just don't know if they're really learning anything at this point.
Right.
I know they're started this week the teachers are one-on-one with not one-on-one, but just group lessons once a week, twice a week.
Okay.
Starting this week.
Okay.
But I don't know if they're learning anything from school.
So I want you to think about what your priority is around what they're learning right now. So I heard you say that you're teaching them, you taught them a game, you're teaching them some things. Think about all of that is learning. What do you want them to really learn that you want to pass on to them, right? The other thing is giving them more responsibility is really smart. So maybe since the 5th graders are done, maybe they plan dinner every other night. They make the menu. They do the cooking. I know that creates a lot of Listen, this is something I've done in my house, and they've gone through so much of my stuff and my spices that, I'm like, for the love of Pete. Like, I mean, there is like a trade-off here, but this is an exciting time to try something different. Like, we're not afforded time like this. So what could they do that they haven't been doing yet? Like, could they teach each other something? Could they teach your whole family something? Could they write a story together? Could they draw?
I signed them up for lots of like extracurricular classes that they can do.
Yes.
So they've done some drawing classes. One of them does singing lessons.
Awesome.
They do reading and drawing and art lessons, like teaching them how to write a comic book.
Yes. Awesome.
So I've signed them up for lots of classes.
Yep.
But it's like my husband's working and we cannot have them running around crazy in the house.
Yes.
And then we send them outside.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's like, should we give them more work to do? Or should we not give them work?
I mean, this is what I would say. What is your priority? Like, what's your family's priority about this time? And then really roll that out. Like, if you, and it's okay for you to remove yourself from being the Julie McCoy of their life. Like, you do not need to be the activity director for them. They can do it. In fact, boredom, there's a huge movement about boredom, right? I'm sure you've seen it. Bored and brilliant, right? Like, it's this idea that when we're bored enough, we really dive into new things. And I would say that's a really cool thing to do for them. I would let them be in charge of something. Like, give them the responsibility of being in charge of something. Like right now, you're in charge of them. Let them be in charge of something for your family. Let them teach you something. Let them decide something. Let them create a night that everybody has to participate in. You know, give them some choice around that. I wish it was easier, but it's not. And It sounds like you're getting really creative and trying your best to help them not be bored. It's a tough game, right? I mean,
It is.
I mean, honestly, it's tough. And we live in a culture that really makes parents feel bad that they're not entertaining their kids. It's okay to not be entertaining. You can say to them from, 1 to 3, I'm off the clock, man. That means that you're on your own. Fine. There's no yelling in the house. Dad's working, but I'm doing my own brain growth time. So go do your own thing. Yeah. It's okay to do that. You have full permission, right? And think about it this way. In 2 years, what do you want your kids to be remembering about this time? Okay? Like in 2 years, what are the things they're going to be remembering? Are they going to be remembering that my mom was all over my case because I didn't do all my online homework? Or are they going to remember my mom made us do those beach body upper ab fix videos with us? I mean, what are they going to remember? They're going to remember that stuff. So focus on the stuff you find important. What's your priority, right? What's your family's priority right now? What do you want to bestow onto them? What do you want to help grow in them? Okay. Does anybody else have anything? Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Anybody? I don't see any hands.
If I may ask.
Yes.
Just any advice? My little one is having trouble sleeping, and we have never had sleep troubles before. She's 8.
Okay.
So any insight?
So trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep?
Both.
Okay.
Both. So so we've got her sleeping bag in our room, and so in the middle of the night she comes in and sleeps on the floor. And,
okay.
And at night we have taken to just sitting on her floor till she falls asleep, which is okay, but it's just never been a problem. So it's just taken us very off guard.
Do you think that there's some worry happening that she's not processing, like speaking to?
She will say she's afraid of bad guys.
Okay.
And but outside of that, I mean, she will say this didn't happen when I was in school.
Yeah.
So she's pretty self-aware.
Yeah.
And we just would like to help her better. I mean.
Right. So, I mean, it's absolutely natural so everything's off kilter. Think about it. Everything is off kilter and off balance for everyone. And so she might be one of those kiddos that kind of senses the world. Like I call them big feelers, right? She might not be, but she might be, right? And the thing about that is
she certainly is.
Okay. So when we are big feelers, we feel the big emotions of everyone, not just ourselves, right? And so that can be really overwhelming. So I think it would be important to anchor her in the safety of the knowing. Okay. So I'm not saying like you have to have a really like sit down, we're having this conversation, but weave in the idea that you're safe. Okay. So we're not lying to say that we're doing all the things that we need to do right now to be safe. We're at home, we're taking care of ourselves, we're washing our hands, we're social distancing, we're following, what we need to do to help ourselves. So it's anchoring her in the control. Okay, I got 2 questions. It's okay. It's okay. Any moment I could have a teenager bust in here screaming, "When's dinner?" So it's totally fine. So I think that it would be worth your while to start weaving in the idea that you're controlling what you can control and you're just anchoring yourself in today, right? So one of the things that when I was sharing that story about sharing last night with my daughter about worrying about my parents and not seeing them, one of the things that she did without even knowing she was doing it is she created space for my feelings, but then she really got me to consider. She said to me, "Hey, Mom, they're safe and okay right now. Nobody's sick." And I was like, right. Like, what do we have? Like, all we have is today, right? And when we stick in today, we tend to be able to settle our nervous system. Because right now we're all fine. We're all sitting in our rooms on this Zoom call, right? We're all fine. So when we do that, when we anchor back to today, it settles some of that stuff. So I just start weaving that in. And I might also ask her, do you feel like you're having any feelings that are coming for a visit that haven't come before? Like, open it up. Allow her to talk about it if she wants to. And if she does say she's worried, don't try to run her through her worry, right? You don't need to run her through her worry. You just listen. Just creating that space is what we need from each other. Does that make sense? Because when we hear our kids are struggling, we're like, we got to get them through it right now. Nope. We walk through it. It's okay. We keep walking, right? That's what we want them to learn. We don't want them to think the waves get big and then mom has to dive in and save you. Nope. The waves get big. We talk about it. And then before you know it, the waves settle down. That's the lesson. Does that make sense? The other thing is I'd be really aware of her sleep routine. So I try to keep it very similar. Sleepy time tea, that spray for even if it's pretend, the spray for the pillow, right? Like all those.
We have it.
You don't even really need sleepy time tea. Could be anything you got in the, all that stuff really works. It really does work. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? No. Okay. I'm really aware of time, and we still have about 5 minutes, but I love people to be pleasantly surprised that it didn't roll over. So it's really helpful for me to know if this was helpful. Not me personally, but it helps me know if we should do this again. So if you have an opinion about that, if you could email me, that would be great. Please, if you don't have an opinion or you're like, that stunk, what a waste of an hour, that's okay. Like, no pressure, but it just helps me know if this way of connecting with each other is useful or helpful for anybody. If it is, I'll just keep doing it. But if it's like, no, we're good, then that's cool too. So it just gives me some feedback. So I really appreciate the fact that you showed up on this glorious day. I mean, it couldn't be nicer outside. So the fact that you came today really speaks a lot about you wanting to do what's best for your kids. So remember, taking care of yourself and your own emotions should be top priority. Remaining the pilot mentality is a second priority. So just remember, your own regulation helps your kids stay regulated. So don't forget to take care of yourselves. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hopefully we'll have more sunny days. So take care.
Thank you.